Hello and welcome to Canguro English. I'm Christian, and today we are going to be talking about the difference and usage between the verbs have and have got. So there is lots of debate and also lots of misinformation about the usage between have and have got. The truth is that actually it's quite complicated. Some people say that have got is mainly British English and have is more American. That have got is very informal, whereas have is more preferred for formal situations. But the truth is that have got is actually widely used in America. But it is true in general that have is preferred in formal situations and also for writing in both Britain and in America. So where did these two verbs come from? Well, have is the older of the two verbs and originally entered English in about the 10th century. Have got, which of course is the perfect form of the verb got, entered English in around the 16th century. Now, up until the beginning of the early 20th century, especially in America, it was considered an error, but it wasn't stigmatized in the same way in Britain. And now we find that it is twice as common in usage, in modern usage, as the verb have, especially by women. And have got is now actually the preferred form in British English. Okay, so now we know a little bit about the history of the verbs. Let's go and look at the usage. Okay, so let's look at the 4 different types of usage in English for have got. So the first one would be obligation. So for example, you have got to do your homework. You have got to study more English. The second one would be necessity or certainty. Like for example, I have got to get a pizza right now. It's necessary for me to have it. Or certainty, like this has got to be the best pizza in the world. Possession, like I have got 2 sisters. And then finally, future plans, like I'm sorry I can't go to the cinema because I've got to go to school tomorrow. Okay, so this here is the original usage of the verb in English from the 16th century, whereas the other types are new to English really, and they've only been around since the 19th century, but already they are twice as popular than the verb have. Now what is really important to note, okay, is that the first 2 types, they are true modals, which means that we can't use them with any other modal verbs, and they don't exist in the gerund form or in the past form. Whereas these 2 here, they are semi-modals or modal phrases. So we can use these with other modal verbs. We can use them in the gerund, we can use them in lots of different ways. So let's take a look at them more closely now, one by one. Okay, so we are going to put the first 2 types together, which is obligation, necessity, and certainty, because they're both modal verbs and the conjugations are both exactly the same. So what's the difference between a modal verb and a normal type of verb? Well, the difference is that we can't use modals with other types of verbs. So how do we make this? So an example, I have got to eat pizza. Okay, I've got to eat pizza. So here we have our verb. Of course, we can conjugate this part for the third person. Like for example, he has got to eat pizza. Okay, so here we've conjugated this part. But, as with other modals, we can't use this with other verbs. We can't say, for example, I must have got to eat pizza. No, impossible. Okay, so this is a restriction. So you know that if you see have got with another type of verb, you know that it's the meaning of possession or a future plan. Now, what's interesting is that especially in American English, the have part is actually disappearing and is being replaced with either just got or gotta. which is the very informal contraction. So you might hear an American saying, I gotta eat pizza, instead of I have got to eat pizza. And if not this, then at least you will see the contraction. You will see I've got. Now, actually, the have in this form of the verb is predicted to actually disappear completely by the end of the century. So in the future, have got may not exist. It may only be got, which is another form of get for you to study. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we're going to look at the fourth type. Okay, we're skipping over the third type. We're doing the fourth type because we're saving the best till last, the possession. So with the future plan, the difference is that this is a semi-modal. So it's the phrase, so we can actually conjugate it. And we can use it with modals. Like, for example, if you have the sentence, I've got school tomorrow. Okay, which is your future plan. Tomorrow you've got school. Well, we can actually use this with modal verbs. You could say, Christian could have got school tomorrow. Christian could have got school tomorrow. That's why he left the party early. So in this case, you can see the difference in the between the verbs. But this is really easy to use. Here you can see I'm using the contraction, and as with all phrasal verbs, okay, we only want to conjugate the first part. We don't want to touch got, okay, never. Okay, so now the final part, possession. And this is probably something that's the most confusing for foreign learners of English. So what's the difference, for example, between I have a dog and I have got a dog? What's the difference between the two? Well, really there is absolutely no difference. They're perfect synonyms. Now, the usage in your country or in your region, of course, varies, but in standard English, there's no difference in the possession sense between I have a dog and I have a dog. So, why is it important that we learn the difference? Okay. Well, the reason is that the conjugations for have and have got are completely different. And this can cause some real problems. So, the first thing we need to do is look at the conjugations. Okay, so we need to go right back to the very basics to understand the difference. So let's put a typical verb, which is pretty much all of the verbs in English. Let's put a typical verb here. So if we want to ask a question, say using the verb go, so let's look at the conjugations for go. So we would have, do you go? So we use the auxiliary do, or for this group here we would use does. Does she go, for example? Or if we want to make the negative, we would put the auxiliary here. Don't and doesn't. So you don't go, or he doesn't go. Okay? So this is typical of almost all of the verbs in English. Okay? But remember that have got, okay, isn't like a typical verb, because although now, okay, we use it like a normal verb, originally it came from the perfect tense. So we have to conjugate it completely differently. So, do we say, do I have got? No, okay? We have to conjugate this verb completely differently, like the perfect tense. So what we need to do is we need to actually use the verb have. So we would say here, have I got, or for this group, has she got? And then if we want to make our negative, we don't use don't or doesn't like a normal verb. No, we have to use the not. Like, for example, you haven't got. Or she hasn't got. So you can see that the conjugation for have got is completely different. So in my classes, this causes a lot of problems because often it's common for a student to ask me a question, for example, have you a sister? And although technically not incorrect, this is very old English. This is how they would have constructed the verb have, in Shakespeare's time. So this would not be a normal thing to say. It would sound very strange, very old-fashioned. Unless it was a super formal situation, like maybe if you were talking to the Queen or the President. But normally, no, never, even in formal writing. So, have you a sister? No. Because remember that we need to have our got. Okay, it's a completely different verb. If we put the have here, have you got a sister? Okay, using the verb have is different. Using the verb have, we would say, do you have a sister? Okay, big difference in conjugation. Now, why is it important? Well, let me give you a little example. What about this? She is a dog. Okay, that's a horrible thing to say. Or she has a dog. She has a dog. Okay, that's fine. She has a dog. So they're completely different verbs. But what about the contractions? The contraction is she's a dog. She is a dog. She has the contraction. The contraction is identical for both. So if you write in your paper, she's a dog, then I don't know whether you mean she is a dog or she has a dog. So whenever we use a contraction, if we mean possession, it's really important that we put the got. She's got a dog, super important. Okay, so that is everything that you need to know about the verbs have and have got. Hopefully that has helped to clarify a lot of things for you. If you would like to see any more classes about the English language, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, exams, anything, then don't forget to subscribe to Canguro English. Thank you very much. I'll see you in class.